This edition of the Ridley Report is brought to you by teaching quirky people to build time machines and pull their heads out of their asses. Since 2000 and something.
Imam prijatelje iz Hrvatske I on učio mene.
When I was a recent mover to New Hampshire and was experimenting with open carry, Sam Cohen, over at Pro Gun NH, had some advice for me, advice which says a lot about the way political people, and maybe bureaucrats, think. He said, don't do an open carry parade, because if you do, someone will put a bill before the legislature. The bill will ban open carry parades, or maybe it'll ban open carry altogether. Well, now, if Sam was that afraid of a bill that probably wouldn't have any chance of passage, my guess is authoritarians are afraid of bills that have no chance of passage. And they're probably deathly afraid of bills that do have a chance of passage. Of course, you often can't tell whether a bill has a chance in the early stages. It's very easy to submit a bill in New Hampshire. Since I've been here, I've attempted to get 2 bills submitted, and I got both of them submitted. It was very easy. You just go to a rep that likes you and say, hey, could you submit a bill for me? Now, I've sort of, at least temporarily, sworn off of having bills submitted to help reduce taxpayer expense, and also because any bill that adds law has unintended consequences. Again, I guess what I'm advocating is maybe not submitting a bill unless you've given the offenders a chance to stop aggressing first. But bills do have potential as a form of defense. There are so few options that the system gives us to easily strike back at the authorities. Lawsuits and government courts seem to be a dead letter for the most part, unless you've got a lot of money. But you can really flummox authoritarians with a bill. I tend to think generally that it's better not to just drop a bill on someone as a way of expressing your outrage. As with any sort of nuclear option, it may be better to just use the thing as a deterrent. I don't know how that would be done, but let's try and game it out. Let's come up with like a scenario here of how it might work. Let's say that a New Hampshire cop improperly tasers a liberty activist. Let's say the cop uses the taser as a sort of torture device. One appropriate and very measured response might be to contact the chief of the offending police department, request that the officer be suspended and investigated, and if the chief doesn't seem to be behaving decently, a next step might be to express your disapproval and inform the chief that there are certain options that could be put on the table if the department seems to be covering up for a bad officer. You could say perhaps one of these options is a bill removing the authority from towns to make certain police purchases. In other words, it would be a bill that repeals some previous law. One of the laws that empowers the police. I realize it's simpler to, submit a bill that actually says police can't do yada yada. It's actually, though, I think better to make bills that reduce the amount of law. So I think it's much better to go after an existing law that helps the police than it is to create a law that limits the police. Anyway, just having the bill as an option on the table without actually submitting it, without actually having any taxpayer expenditure, that could be relatively powerful in helping to modify bad behavior on the part of the authorities. Then, if they continue egregious behavior, the taxpayer expenditure is sort of on their head when the bill comes forward. I'd welcome any feedback as to whether there are any laws that would interfere with the person doing what I'm suggesting. Considering how there are, I think, 80 megabytes worth of New Hampshire law, it's impossible for me to know what all the laws are on something like this. But I definitely want to know if this idea breaches legality. In that case, traveling down this road would be potentially civil disobedience, and it would be better to know it than not know it.
Chris,